the podcast exclusively for association executives and members. Each week, Jeff interviews association executives about their victories, igniting new ideas for you to create greater value for your members. And now, Jeff Tippett.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Tippett, and I'm grateful that you joined us for today's episode of Victory by Association. Today's show is brought to you by Persuasion Publishers. Persuasion Publishers disrupts the traditional model of book publishing. We empower you to get your story from idea to bookshelf in just 2 months with a high-quality product at an affordable cost. Learn more at persuasionpublishers.com and check out our show notes for the link. Today, I'm excited to welcome our special guest, Brian Rappaport. Brian, how are you today?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm excited to talk. Sounds like you've been sort of our side of the country here in the last couple of weeks. So nice to hear that you've been over on the East Coast as well.
Yeah, all around. Definitely making my rounds for sure.
I love it. Well, tell me a little bit about just high level here, the 30,000 square feet, Ryan, about your industry background within associations and some of the things that you've done.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the National Cannabis Industry Association. It's an industry association that helps members, whether they're in the community as retailers, ancillary businesses, even other political organizations, use that as a forum for communicating and helping push political agenda as well as policy through at the national and state level. I'm also managing director and co-founder of a company called Digital Venture Partners, where we work with celebrities, athletes, and influencers, helping them build cannabis brands. So the two definitely mesh in, one being very grassroots, the other one kind of being more high level, and allows me to combine both together.
Oh my gosh, Ryan, I am intrigued already. I cannot wait for this conversation. You are in a hot area of political talk and talk all around right now. So I love it. Well, before we kick off, tell us, Ryan, a little bit about you, maybe something unique or interesting that's not on your LinkedIn profile or on your website, just something to help us understand a little bit about you.
Yeah, I think, probably it's very formative in my upbringing. I've actually practiced martial arts for a little over 30 years now, on and off. More recently, I've been doing Muay Thai for about 2.5 years now, but I was actually a junior Olympic silver medalist in Taekwondo back in the day. So that's a very important part of my life. And I'm one of those guys who actually watches MMA and recites the moves and who knows who everyone is, and everyone's like, why do you know so much about this? And yeah, that's me.
All right, note to self, don't pick a fight with you. I already got that one down, man. I'm gonna be your ally here. I'm gonna be your friend today, not picking a fight with you. That was guaranteed. Well, talk to me a little bit about the state of cannabis. Let's start there if we could. What's happening right now? What's going on across the country? What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, it's definitely an industry in flux in both good and bad ways. There was a lot of high valuations and, maybe overvaluation that happened early on in the industry. And granted, prohibition has not federally ended yet, so there's still a lot to happen there. But as we have watched the progress, and there's all this big hoopla about the green rush, what we found is that people weren't really looking at deals, weren't really understanding at the ground level how these companies can be successful. And it's led to kind of almost a reset happening, very similar like a .com crash. So on top of that, though, you have a burgeoning federal or state level market that's been expanding every year. We have something 13 recreational states, 33 medical states, I believe, right now. And then that's really happened because of organizations like the National Cannabis Industry Association, which leverages people's time, efforts, and money to go out there and tell the story of the stigmas and some of the social injustices that have happened because of cannabis or cannabis prohibition being. And part of what brought me to this organization was the idea of, hey, I'm not just going to sit here and talk about it. We're actually going to do something. And that's been really exciting and a very integral part to my growth in the industry.
Interesting. So admittedly, I know you don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not asking you for an exact prediction, but we are sitting here, here we are this brand new year, we're into 2020. What do you see in this new decade? We won't hold you to your prediction whatsoever, but what do you think is going to happen now that we're in this new decade?
Yeah, I think there's going to be three things. One, I think the federal legalization is going to happen. My prediction is 2020, at least maybe going into effect 2021, but I think it's coming sooner than people think. I think the global legalization of cannabis, as we've seen that happening, South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Canada, we're actually late to the boat in that. And so I think there's a lot, as the international market develops and these lines kind of shift and merge, there'll be a lot of exciting opportunity there. And then as I kind of referenced before, I do believe that we're heading towards a little bit of a market reset, that there was a little bit of like an overvaluation, very similar to what we saw with the dot-com crash, where it's everyone out the gate was like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, this is life-changing. Yeah, that is. But are people properly building companies, or is it just built on this like house of cards? And we've seen some of those houses falling lately. So it's definitely made a little bit of unease, particularly people outside who are putting money into the industry. But what I can tell you as someone who's kind of ground level, it's still an amazing opportunity. And it's like, I'm sure that the liquor industry was nowhere near to what's been achieved so far, 5 years after federal prohibition ended then. So.
Yeah. So do you see like a move away from the state push and everything really just headed down toward the federal?
No, I see the opposite, actually. I think
Okay.
it's going to be regulated at the state level, very
Okay.
similar to what happens with like alcohol
Sure.
bureau today. And that works for me too, because particularly in states that don't want to have it legalized, or maybe you want to be a dry county, that can all happen legally. And we've seen it, and that's part of the issues out there for the people going out and trying to get these licenses. You essentially have to not just convince the people in your town, county, and state. You have to convince all the neighbors, whether it's neighboring states, neighboring towns. And so, yeah, there are a lot of barriers there still, but we see a lot of people being happy that the industry is still growing despite what's happening negatively in the news.
Yeah, so I had the fantastic privilege and opportunity to work in our state, the state of North Carolina, regarding alcohol sales. So in our state, on Sundays, you could not buy alcohol before noon. The thought process, these are old blue laws, right? The thought process was you're to be in church. There's no reason you should be drinking on Sunday mornings. And the hospitality industry and the majority of the state wanted to change the legislation so that you could buy alcohol, on Sunday morning starting at 10 a.m. And we kind of took a similar approach where the bill was actually crafted as an opt-in program. So, and that gave a lot of cover to legislators who were a little bit concerned about passing it for their area because it might be a bit more conservative. And have even some of them, we actually still have dry counties here in the state of North Carolina, but allow them groups, municipalities, and unincorporated areas to opt in if that's what they chose to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's there's a lot of legislation going through right now. One of the ones is the States Act, which I've heard has been particularly between conservatives and liberals had a little bit more of an ability to mesh on that one because it is, hey, this is state level. If the state wants to do it, the federal government shouldn't be getting in the way as it is today. But there's a lot of other exciting things coming, like safe banking, which is also all about being able to federally bank, which might just in itself legalize cannabis without actually having federal legalization. And then another, and the one I'm most excited about, is the MORE Act, which just got passed by the House Judiciary Committee, which was a surprise to me because I was just down in DC lobbying about 3 weeks ago. And all the offices I went into, states that have legalized cannabis weren't familiar with it. So I came out almost a little discouraged after that. I'm like, wow, no one knows what this is, but this is like essentially what rights a lot of wrongs. And that by a week and a half later, it passed the House Judiciary Committee, which was a big surprise to everyone. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's drill in. We've had so much fun talking high level, and I just find it intriguing because with my background of helping to change laws, move policies or stop it. I love it. And I see the value of what grassroots can do. So tell me some about like a particular victory or success or something that you've worked with or something that you've seen that would be interesting to our listeners and our viewers that we can kind of drill down a little bit here in these last few minutes.
Yeah, well, I think the one I would like to reference is the MORE Act, going back to that, because that was the most comprehensive for terms of legalization, funding. It was going to be allow SBAs for mom and pops, which is a huge impediment today. And then it was also a huge not just decriminalization, but allowing all the repeal of all these people that had been incarcerated. So it was going to free a lot of people, or it is going to free a lot of people from jail as well. So that conservatives are wrestling with that, from what I heard. So it was very interesting for me to go and actually, after hearing that and seeing it pass, where there are a number of conservatives on the Judiciary Committee. So it led me to believe that now that people are being able to see the dollar signs, and a lot of that stigma is being pulled back by veterans, members of the community, politicians, and just, the people who are affected, whether it's medically or recreationally, to use cannabis. And so that's what has really made me so kind of passionate and in tune to the National Cannabis Industry Association, because they've taken this really strong member approach where it's like, yeah, we can have, 100 companies as part of this, but if we don't have those people showing up to our quarterly caucuses, to our national shows, to our regional shows, then people aren't going to be telling their story. And, with cannabis, because there's been so much stigma for so long, the stories are what is the differentiator. People being able to go in there and say, hey, I'm a mother of 3 and I use cannabis every day because I have bad anxiety. Or someone like myself who was a good student, I played college football, but I used cannabis recreationally, and I was always forced into hiding it, even though I never thought it was an issue. And it never affected me in a negative way, except, the stigma. So being able to be a part of a group that's not just saying, hey, what can we do policy level, but also let's work with the individuals in our community to help push that policy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's tie back in something that you said earlier that I'm intrigued with as well, about your professional work that you do here with celebrities. Talk to me a little bit about like what's happening with that, and your goals and what you are working to accomplish there, and how does that tie in to this same field?
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in brand. Brand for me is one of the most important parts of any industry. And I think it's one of the things that people not necessarily put to the wayside. They think of brand, but I don't think they put as much importance on it as possible. And then sometimes you can always put too much importance on it, where it's all about the brand, but whatever that product or services that's lying underneath it, if it's not up to par with that brand, then it's going to be pretty quickly sussed out by the market. And that's what we've seen a lot of on this kind of influencer celebrity brand side. Is we've had a lot of announcements and a lot of like big headlines, and then either nothing comes, or when it does come, it's not adopted or accepted. And there are a lot of successful cases, but more so recently, there are more unsuccessful cases, and particularly with an influx market and a lot of overcapitalization. Someone like myself, who works more grassroots, everything we've done up to today's day is bootstrapped, and that's been resonating with these athletes who know how to work hard, or music artists who are in the studio every day. Like the working hard part, they don't have a problem with. It's how do we bridge that gap and remove a lot of the barriers that exist today, and that's where we found some early on success here.
Ryan, this is fascinating. I'm going to have to definitely make sure I follow your journey and see the things that you're working on. Just from a public perception view, the whole stigma. I mean, this is intriguing to me as someone who works in this space, just to see like what you're doing to change the mindsets. It's fantastic. Well, for our association executives that are listening in today, Ryan, if you had one final tip here that you'd want to give them, anything in your space, anything that you want to do, anything you would like to talk about, what would you like to leave them with? A tip or something that's helped you find success?
Yeah, for me, and this is personally and professionally, it's get down into the dirt. You should be having the conversations with new members, old members. You should be out in the field at places where your members might be, asking and really quantifying who is or who and why people aren't members. And I've seen this even in my industry at a top line view. People think they know what's good for everyone, but when policy gets pushed down, or brand or whatever is created based off of a higher level perception, it often fails. But you've gone down and asked the people at the bottom level what they want, what they need, and what will make you successful, that is, for me, the most valuable intel I can ever have. And so that's, if I could push one thing, it's go down and get your hands dirty. And no, it doesn't matter how dirty that is, even if you're dipping your pinky or your elbow arm deep, that's it needs to happen.
Love it, Ryan. Well, how's the best way for people to find you? If they want some more information about you or the work that you're doing, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Vivon, Vevon Rappaport. And you can also find me on Instagram at Rye_rap.
Fantastic. And we'll include links in those in the show notes for today. Ryan, thank you. This has been intriguing. This is fascinating. I can't wait. This is one of those I want the next part of this, right? Ready for part 2 of this show. So I look forward to continue watching you. I'll have to follow you on Instagram as well so I can see what all you're doing and the things that you're working on. So thank you again, Ryan, for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your expertise with me and with our audience as well, and also catching us up on where this industry is right now. And also thank you all for listening and being a part of today's show. I'll see you next week as we discover another victory by association.
Thank you, Jeff.
You've been listening to Victory by Association with Jeff Tippett. If you've enjoyed, please subscribe, rate, and review. Be sure to check out the show notes for links relating to this episode. For information about becoming a sponsor or guest, please email podcast@jefftippett.com.